Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Darling, if your salary belongs to your mother, then mine belongs to my parents, Carmen decided. Carmen slowly stirred her tea, watching the thin spiral of steam rising above the cup. Sunday morning promised to be the same as dozens before, quiet, measured, and with an inevitable call from Dolores. Somewhere in the depths of the apartment, Miguel was fiddling with a faulty faucet, occasionally cursing when the wrench slipped off a rusty nut. "How are you doing there?" Carmen called out, already knowing the answer. "Damn it," came from the bathroom. "We'll have to call a plumber." Carmen sighed, mentally calculating expenses. Plumber, groceries for the week, utility bills, transit pass. Money was melting away faster than it appeared on her card, especially considering the regular tribute that Miguel dutifully sent to his mother. Their meeting with Miguel 3 years ago seemed like a gift of fate. Carmen, tired of an endless series of unsuccessful dates with self-absorbed managers and superficial creative types, didn't expect to meet a shy engineer in the library who came to return a stack of technical journals. "You know, you dropped something," he began then, handing her a bookmark. "Thank you," Carmen smiled, noting to herself his attentive brown eyes. "Probably fell out of Don Quixote." "Cervantes," he unexpectedly perked up. "Manuscripts don't burn. Are you rereading or is this your first time?" Thus began a half-hour conversation about literature, which flowed into an exchange of phone numbers and then into a date at a cozy cafe not far from the library. With Miguel, everything was surprisingly easy, no posturing, no attempts to impress. Just a sincere, kind person with a broad outlook and a childlike wonder about the world. They had a modest but heartfelt wedding a year later. It was then that Carmen truly met Dolores for the first time. "Miguel has always been my special boy," her mother-in-law said at the reception table, squeezing her son's hand as if he were trying to escape. "I raised him alone, without a father. Everything for him, everything for his sake. And now I'm sharing him with you. Beware, girl." The last phrase was spoken with a smile, but Dolores's eyes remained cold. The guests laughed, taking it as a joke, but Carmen felt a chill run down her spine. The phone ringing pulled Carmen from her memories. "It's Mom," Miguel said, wiping his wet hands on a towel. "I'll answer now." Carmen tensed inside. Today is Saturday, payday was Friday. Like clockwork, Dolores never forgot about her son's duty. "Yes, Mom." "Yes, I received it." Miguel's voice acquired a thin, almost childish quality. "Of course, I'll transfer it now." "Yes, I understand. You know I always help." Carmen turned to the window to avoid seeing her husband obediently opening the banking app. The dialogue, which had sounded dozens of times, didn't require her attention. She knew every line by heart. The first time it happened was a month after the wedding. Miguel then sheepishly explained that his mom needed a little help with medications. Carmen didn't object. Of course, helping parents is natural and important. But then a little turned into a fixed amount, and medications became regular transfers for everything, from buying a new TV to a swimming pool membership. Done, Miguel returned to the kitchen, avoiding his wife's gaze. "Transferred €2,000. 2,000? It was 1,500 last time." Carmen tried to speak calmly. "Well, you know, utility bills have increased, and Mom's pension is small." "Miguel, your mother's pension is above average for Madrid. And she works part-time in accounting." Miguel shrugged guiltily. "Carmen, what can I do? She raised me. Alone. All her strength, all her resources invested in me. I owe her." Carmen knew this song by heart too. Dolores had masterfully instilled in her son a sense of perpetual guilt and obligation to her. "I gave up my personal life for you. I didn't sleep nights when you were sick. I gave you my last bite." His mother-in-law juggled these phrases virtuosically. "What about our refrigerator?" Carmen asked quietly. "It's been working intermittently for 2 weeks. We had an agreement." Yes, of course," Miguel replied hastily. "We'll definitely buy it next month." Mom's just saving up for a resort in Marbella right now, then finances will be easier. Carmen nodded silently, though she perfectly understood easier would never come. After the resort, there would be renovations, then new furniture, then some other necessary expense. A barely audible crack from the kitchen reminded her of the main problem. The refrigerator was acting up again. The ancient Bosch, inherited from Miguel's grandmother, was working at the limit of its capabilities. At times, the compressor made sounds as if a full-scale bullfight was unfolding inside the unit. Hear that? Carmen nodded toward the kitchen. That's your mother speaking her loud thank you for the help. Miguel grimaced. Let's not start, okay? Let's just hang in there a bit longer. A bit longer had stretched to 2 years. 2 years during which almost a quarter of their family budget went to Dolores. In the evening, lying in bed, Carmen tried to imagine how to change the situation. Conversations with Miguel yielded no results. He would listen, nod, agree, and then still do things his way. Or rather, his mother's way. What are you reading? Miguel sat on the edge of the bed. An article about financial independence, Carmen replied, not looking up from her smartphone. You know, it says here that modern couples should have a transparent family budget and make financial decisions together. Miguel muttered vaguely, clearly not wanting to delve into the topic. It also says here that financial dependency of parents is a form of emotional abuse of adult children. Miguel tensed. Carmen, let's not, okay? I'm tired. You're always tired when it comes to your mother. Carmen put down her phone. But we're a family, Miguel. We should resolve such issues together. We do resolve them. He raised his voice, something he almost never did. You just don't understand. Mom is sacred. And what is a wife? Carmen asked quietly. Miguel remained silent, examining his hands. You know what the problem is? Carmen continued. Your mother doesn't perceive you as a separate person. For her, you're an extension of herself. And the thought that you have your own life, your own priorities, your own family, is like a knife to her. She's just worried. No, Miguel. She controls. These endless calls, advice, demands, checks, it's not care, it's control. And money is also a form of control. As long as you're financially tied to her, you'll always feel like a child who has to report and receive approval. Miguel stood up and silently left the room. Such conversations always ended the same way. He avoided confrontation, left, and then pretended nothing had happened. The next morning, Carmen woke up to the smell of coffee and fried toast. Miguel stood at the stove, concentratedly flipping bread with a spatula. Good morning, he smiled. I've been thinking about the refrigerator. Let's buy it next month after all. You'll get a bonus, right? Yes, it should be a good one, Carmen cautiously replied. Quarterly. That's great. Miguel placed a plate with breakfast in front of her. We'll combine your bonus and part of your salary, enough for a good refrigerator. Carmen silently drank her coffee, understanding that this truce resolved nothing. The problem remained. Dolores would still drain their family budget, and Miguel would unquestioningly give away his salary. But she didn't want to argue. These rare moments of marital harmony were too precious. Miguel's phone vibrated. Yes, Mom, he answered, and his face again took on that guilty expression that Carmen so hated. Of course, I remember. Yes. I'll stop by tomorrow. What is it this time? Carmen asked when he finished the conversation. Kitchen faucet is leaking, need to replace a washer, Miguel smiled. Nothing serious, a 5-minute job. What about our mixer? What about our refrigerator? Carmen wanted to ask, but remained silent. Useless. Dolores just had to call, and Miguel would drop everything and rush to help. Meanwhile, small household problems in their own apartment could wait weeks for a solution. Miguel reached for his laptop. Let's look at refrigerator models to know what we're aiming for. Carmen nodded in agreement. Maybe this time they would actually succeed. Maybe Dolores wouldn't come up with another urgent necessity just when the bonus arrived. But somewhere deep inside, she already knew their plans would again crash against the wall of maternal demands. As always. As every time in this endless story of filial debt. And meanwhile, the refrigerator made an especially loud crack, as if mocking their naive hopes. Carmen's premonition didn't deceive her. The quarterly bonus was due to arrive on her card next Friday, and she counted the days, anxiously listening to the strained hum of the refrigerator. The old Bosch was in its death throes. It emitted an unpleasant smell of heating plastic, food spoiled faster than usual, and at night it made such sounds that Carmen sometimes woke up in a cold sweat. For days, she whispered, looking at the calendar and the red circle around the bonus payment date. Just 4 days until the refrigerator. The bonus was supposed to be about €2,000, a sum that was more than enough for a decent refrigerator. Carmen had already picked out a model in an online store, a 2-chamber Siemens with a no-frost system and an impressive freezer compartment. €1,200, and no more leaks, strange sounds, and worrying smells. She planned to set aside the remaining €800 for a summer vacation. In 3 years of marriage, she and Miguel had never been on a real vacation. There was never enough money. And yet they so needed to rest together, away from prying eyes and constant phone calls. Hot croissants for breakfast, Miguel poked his head into the bedroom doorway. With coffee and orange marmalade. Carmen smiled. In recent days, her husband had been especially attentive and caring. He too was looking forward to buying a new refrigerator, savoring the details of the chosen model like a boy dreaming of a new toy. I spoke with the seller, Miguel reported, pouring coffee. They can deliver the refrigerator on Saturday. Can you imagine? This weekend we'll have a brand new beauty. And what about the old one? Carmen asked, biting into a warm croissant. Removal of old appliances is included in the delivery cost. Miguel proudly puffed out his chest, demonstrating business acumen. Everything's taken care of. In such moments, Carmen saw in him the Miguel she fell in love with, confident, decisive, capable of taking responsibility. A man, not a boy at the beck and call of a domineering mother. You know what I dream of? Carmen took her husband's hand. That we could live like this all the time. Make decisions together, plan for the future. Without external interference. Miguel tensed. He always sensed when the conversation approached the forbidden topic. Carmen, let's not. I'm just saying I like it when we manage our own money and our own lives, she gently interrupted. Don't you like this feeling? Of freedom? Miguel stared into his cup as if he could find an answer there. I like it when things are good between us, he finally said. When there are no arguments. When we're together. I like that too. That's exactly why I want it to be like this always, Carmen carefully chose her words. So that no one interferes. So that only we make the decisions. Miguel rose from the table. I have to go to work. See you tonight. The conversation had hit a dead end again. As always. On Thursday evening, Carmen checked the banking app. The bonus had arrived. €2,250, even more than she expected. Elated, she pre-ordered the refrigerator for Saturday, making a down payment of €100. Miguel, it's all confirmed, she called to her husband, who was fiddling with a faulty floor lamp. They'll deliver on Saturday. Excellent, he called back from the living room. Shall we open some cava for the occasion? They didn't finish the cava. At around 11 o'clock in the evening, Miguel's phone rang. Mom, he frowned. Everything's fine. Carmen tensed, watching her husband's rapidly changing face. He turned pale, broke into a sweat, and she already knew something had happened. Something serious. Yes, Mom. Yes. I understand. Of course. How much? Miguel swallowed. 1,400? Okay. Yes, I'll transfer it in the morning. When he hung up, a heavy silence hung in the room. What happened? Carmen finally asked, though her inner voice was already screaming the answer. Mom needs money. Miguel was looking at the floor. For a medical resort. 1,400 euros. What resort? Carmen felt everything freezing inside. She just returned from a vacation in Alicante. This is different. Miguel nervously rubbed his hands. A specialized sanatorium for joint treatment. They have some unique methodology. The doctor insists. And it needs to be paid right tomorrow, otherwise the spot will be gone. Carmen exhaled slowly, trying to curb the rising wave of fury. So we won't have a refrigerator. Her voice sounded unnaturally calm. Carmen, you understand, Mom's arthritis has flared up. She really needs treatment. Your mother is 48 years old. She has a good job, a decent pension from her first husband, and an apartment that she rents out. Since when does arthritis treatment cost 1,400 euros? Miguel helplessly spread his hands. It's some kind of innovative course. Regular treatment doesn't help. And of course, she called today. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Exactly on the day when I received my bonus, Carmen felt something tearing inside her, coming apart at the seams. Tell me, did she somehow find out about my bonus? Miguel hesitated, and that pause was enough. You told her. It wasn't a question. You told her about my bonus. I just mentioned that we were planning to buy a refrigerator. Miguel defended himself. I didn't know she would have health problems. Her health problems occur with enviable regularity. Carmen raised her voice. Every time we get money, your mother suddenly develops some rare disease requiring immediate and expensive treatment. Don't talk like that. For the first time that evening, Miguel also raised his voice. You have no right to accuse my mother. And does she have the right to clean us out to the last penny? Does she have the right to dictate how we spend our money? Does she have the right to destroy our family? Nobody is destroying anything. Miguel jumped up from the couch. We just need to help a little. Mom isn't well. Don't you find it strange that your mother becomes unwell exactly when we have money? Carmen tried to speak reasonably, but emotions were overflowing. Don't you see this pattern? Miguel grabbed his jacket. I don't want to discuss this. In the morning I'll transfer the money, and that's final. Your mother is manipulating you. Carmen felt tears welling up. She's using your guilt and your attachment. Don't you understand? Miguel silently left the apartment, slamming the door loudly. In the deafening silence, Carmen sank down on the couch. She was shaking. Everything inside her raged with injustice, with helplessness, with the understanding that nothing would change. Dolores would continue to suck them dry, and Miguel would submissively obey her demands. Until late at night, Carmen lay sleepless, listening to the rain starting outside. Where was Miguel now? Where had he gone? To his mother? Just wandering the streets? For some reason, for the first time in their relationship, she wasn't just hurt, she didn't care. At 1 a.m, the front door slammed. Miguel quietly went to the bathroom. The water ran for a long time. He lay down on the edge of the bed, trying not to touch Carmen, and she pretended to be asleep. It was as if a wall had grown between them, invisible but impenetrable. In the morning, when Carmen woke up, Miguel was already gone. A note lay on the kitchen table, left early. Need to stop by the bank. And no apologies, no explanations. She knew what that meant. The money had already been transferred. 1,400 euros, almost his entire salary and part of her bonus, had gone to Dolores for a resort. The refrigerator was postponed once again. Carmen sat in the kitchen, clutching her phone and looking at the amount in the account. And suddenly something clicked inside her. If Miguel wanted so badly to give money to his parents, why shouldn't she do the same? The decision came instantly, as if a dam had burst. Carmen opened her banking app and quickly, before she could change her mind, transferred her entire salary and bonus, 3,120 euros, to her mother's account. Mom, hi. I transferred you money for that vacation in the Canary Islands you've been dreaming about. Enjoy. Love, Carmen. After sending the message, she leaned back in her chair and unexpectedly laughed. There was something liberating about this reckless act. It was as if she had shed a heavy burden from her shoulders, stopped being a victim, and taken the situation into her own hands. A minute later, her phone vibrated. Her mother was calling. Carmen? What's happening? Her mother's voice sounded concerned. Where did such a sum come from? I want you to go and relax, Carmen calmly replied. To the Canary Islands. Or wherever you want. Hijamia, is everything all right? Worry was audible in her voice. Why such a sudden gift? Carmen took a deep breath and told her mother everything, about Dolores' regular extortions, about the refrigerator that never materialized, about the resort that appeared as if by magic right after receiving the bonus. And what do you want to prove by this? Her mother quietly asked after a long silence. I want Miguel to understand how this looks from the outside. I want him to feel what I feel when our plans are ruined because of another whim of his mother. And you're ready to spend all the money on this performance? No, Mom, Carmen smiled ruefully. I know you'll return it to me when the time comes. Just play along for a few days. Please. There was silence on the other end of the line, and Carmen was afraid her mother would refuse to participate in this adventure. All right, she finally said. But remember, sometimes such games can go too far. Be careful, daughter. In the evening, Miguel returned from work in a strangely elevated mood. As if the morning transfer of money had lifted some burden from him, and now he felt he had fulfilled his duty. Hi. He pecked Carmen on the cheek. How was your day? Normal, she smiled, hoping the smile looked natural. And yours? Not bad. Even excellent. He rubbed his hands together. Maybe you could fry up some albondigas for dinner? I've missed your meatballs so much. There was something childlike, almost touching in this request. Like a little boy who had misbehaved during the day, hoping to placate his mother with a favorite treat. About the albondigas, Carmen raised her eyes to him. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Why? Miguel looked genuinely disappointed. We should have ground meat in the freezer. The meat might be there, she shrugged. But the fact is, we don't have money for the other ingredients. For the frying oil, for spices, for the side dish. What do you mean, no money? Miguel frowned. We still have. We didn't give all. No, not all. Carmen opened the refrigerator, demonstrating the alarming emptiness. But you transferred 1,400 euros to your mom. I transferred 3,120 euros to mine. In the end, we have exactly enough for transportation to work and back. And for internet, to order food, if we had money for food. You did what? Miguel was stunned, trying to comprehend what he'd heard. Transferred. How much? 3,120 euros. My entire salary and bonus, Carmen spoke calmly, almost businesslike. My mother has long dreamed of a trip to the Canary Islands. So, I decided to help. We should help our parents, right? She took her smartphone from her pocket and showed her husband the screenshot of the transfer. Miguel's jaw dropped. But, the refrigerator, he mumbled. What about the refrigerator? Carmen shrugged. We decided that a resort for your mother was more important. And if your mother can go to a resort, then my mother can go to the Canaries. It's all fair. Helping parents is sacred. Miguel collapsed onto a chair, not taking his eyes off the phone screen, where the transfer amount and the recipient's name, Mercedes Garcia, were clearly visible. You did this on purpose, didn't you? His voice trembled. To get back at me? What would I be getting back at you for? Carmen feigned surprise. I just helped my mother. Like you helped yours. Is that revenge? But how will we now? Miguel ran his fingers through his hair. We have no money. None at all. And it's still 2 weeks until payday. Yes, the situation is unpleasant, Carmen agreed. And they won't be delivering the refrigerator tomorrow. I've already canceled the order. They won't refund the reservation fee, of course, but that's only €100. Small change compared to the rest. Miguel jumped up and paced around the kitchen. What have you done? How will we live for 2 weeks without money? What will we eat? I don't know. Carmen went to the cupboard and took out a package of pasta. Here, I found some supplies. Enough for a couple of days. And after that? We'll figure something out. She put a pot of water on the stove. By the way, has your mother already paid for the resort? Carmen asked casually. Maybe you could ask her for some money back? For food? Miguel froze. Something like understanding flashed in his eyes. Do you really think I'll ask? He asked quietly. Why not? Carmen shrugged. We help each other in difficult times. We're family, after all. Miguel silently sat down on a chair and covered his face with his hands. Carmen could see his shoulders trembling, but she didn't feel a drop of remorse. For the first time in a long while, it seemed to her that she had made the right choice. The pot of water came to a boil, and Carmen poured in the entire package of pasta. The less I put in, the longer it will last, flashed through her mind, and this thought suddenly seemed funny. She laughed quietly, understanding that this absurd situation was the beginning of something new. Maybe the beginning of the end. Or maybe the beginning of a real family. The refrigerator in the corner of the kitchen, as if rejoicing in her desperate courage, made a triumphant crack and started working again. The first day of the pasta diet passed in tense silence. Carmen and Miguel barely spoke, as if an invisible wall had risen between them. In the morning he went to his work, she to hers. In the evening they silently ate overcooked pasta, seasoned with the remains of salt and dried spices found in the depths of the kitchen cabinet. The refrigerator worked intermittently. Sometimes it would go quiet for several hours, and then Carmen would gently tap on its side, as if trying to resuscitate a dying patient. Most often it helped. The appliance would shudder, emit an agonizing screech, and start humming again. On the second day, Miguel couldn't stand it. Can I at least call your mother? He asked, looking at another portion of bland pasta noodles. Explain the situation. Why? Carmen calmly stirred the noodles in her plate. My mother has already booked a hotel in the Canary Islands. Bought swimsuits, a hat. She needs to rest, right? Parents invest so much in us, it's time for us to take care of them. Miguel gripped his fork so hard that his knuckles turned white. You staged all this on purpose, didn't you? To teach me a lesson? I just helped my mother, Carmen shrugged. Just like you help yours. What's wrong with that? But now we're sitting here with no money. No food. Not without food. We have pasta, Carmen smiled with a slight hint of irony. And I found a can of corn in the cupboard. Tomorrow will be a feast, pasta with corn. Miguel pushed away his plate. I can't eat this anymore. Then don't eat, Carmen continued to methodically twirl pasta onto her fork. After all, there are people who are truly starving. We're just economizing a bit. That evening, Miguel's phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock, to the minute, as if on schedule. Dolores. Yes, Mom, Miguel's voice sounded tired. No, everything's fine. Just a little busy. Carmen demonstratively rattled the empty pot, and Miguel went out onto the balcony, closing the door tightly behind him. She couldn't hear the conversation, only saw through the glass how her husband nervously gestured, now running his fingers through his hair, now rubbing the bridge of his nose, a sure sign of stress. When he returned to the room, his face was pale. Mom is asking why I'm not visiting her, he said quietly. Usually I went to see her 3 or 4 times a week, and now I'm avoiding meetings. And why is that? Carmen looked up from the book she was trying to read. Because. Miguel hesitated. Because I don't want to explain why we didn't buy a refrigerator. She'll start asking questions. And what will you tell her? Carmen closed the book. That we're starving because all the money went to her resort and my mother's trip to the Canaries? I don't know what to say, Miguel admitted. She already suspects something's wrong. Tell the truth, Carmen suggested. That we're left without money after all the parental expenses. Miguel shook his head. She'll decide that you're to blame for everything. That you're manipulating me. Me? Carmen laughed joyously. What irony. On the third day, the pasta ran out. In the cupboard, they found a package of expired rice and several packets of bouillon cubes left over from winter. Carmen cooked something between soup and porridge, sprinkling this masterpiece with a forlorn handful of corn. A feast fit for kings, she said, putting the plates on the table. Enjoy. Miguel silently began to eat, but after a few spoonfuls set down his spoon. I can't take it anymore, Carmen. This is some kind of mockery. Of whom? She raised her eyebrows. Of you? Or of common sense? 2 adult working families are starving because they sent all their money to their quite well-off parents. Funny, isn't it? Miguel got up from the table. I'll go to my mother. I'll ask for some money. Nodded Carmen. Tell her it's for groceries. For the albondigas I never fried. Miguel frowned but didn't answer. He just put on his jacket and left the apartment. He returned 2 hours later, empty-handed and with a dull look. Well, asked Carmen, not looking up from her laptop screen. Did Mother Dearest show generosity? She. Miguel sank heavily onto the couch. She said that if we have problems with money, it's because you manage it incorrectly. That one needs to know how to economize. Wonderful, Carmen closed her laptop. And how much did she give for our economical existence? Miguel was silent, studying the pattern on the carpet. I see, Carmen stood up. The resort turned out to be more important than her hungry son. Logical. She said she had already paid for the trip, Miguel said quietly. That all the money was gone. All 1,400 euros. Carmen feigned surprise. Every last cent? Remarkable coincidence. Stop it, Miguel raised a tired gaze to her. We need to hold out until payday. It's only 10 days. 10 days of living on water and expired rice, Carmen nodded. Sounds like a plan. At that moment, the refrigerator made an especially loud crack and fell silent. This time no tapping helped, the appliance had died completely. The 4th and 5th days merged into one endless, torturous marathon of hunger and irritation for Carmen. Only rice remained, which she tried to stretch by preparing very small portions. By the end of the 5th day, she caught herself becoming irritable, quick-tempered, struggling to concentrate at work. Her head was spinning, and at times dark spots danced before her eyes. Miguel looked no better. He had lost weight, shadows lay under his eyes, and at work he made several errors in calculations, for which he received a reprimand from his superiors. Maybe we could borrow from someone, he suggested on the evening of the 5th day. From your friends or my colleagues? Carmen shook her head. And what would we say? Hello, lend us money for food, we gave all our money to our mothers? Sounds pathetic and ridiculous. What do you suggest? Miguel raised his voice. Continue starving? I suggest waiting for the resolution, Carmen calmly replied. It will come very soon, believe me. What resolution? Miguel looked at her with bewilderment. This is all some game of yours. You set this up on purpose. Carmen feigned surprise. I just helped my mother fulfill a dream. Just as you helped your mother with the resort. Isn't that the meaning of family, to help each other? But you. Miguel faltered, at a loss for words. You did it out of spite. To show. To prove. To prove what exactly? Carmen crossed her arms over her chest. That we can't live normally because all the money goes to your mother? That we can't buy a refrigerator because your mother suddenly fell ill, requiring expensive treatment? That we can't plan anything at all, because at any moment Dolores might call and cancel everything? Miguel opened his mouth to object but didn't say a word. His face reflected a whole range of emotions, from anger to confusion, from denial to a glimmer of understanding. "You just hate my mother," he finally said. "You've always hated her." "No, Miguel," Carmen shook her head. "I don't hate your mother. I hate what she does to us. To you. Manipulates, controls, makes you feel guilty. You're a grown man, but next to her you turn into a little boy who needs mommy's approval." "That's not true." Miguel jumped up. "I'm just showing respect. Taking care of her." "Care is when you give someone what they truly need," Carmen said quietly. "Not when you fulfill any whim, afraid of causing disapproval. That's not care, Miguel. That's dependence." At that moment, Miguel's phone rang. The screen displayed Mom. "Don't answer," Carmen asked. "Just this once. Please." Miguel stared at the flashing smartphone screen as if hypnotized. His hand trembled, reached for the phone, and pulled back. The call faded and then sounded again, more insistently. "If I don't answer, she'll call all night," said Miguel. "Or come to check if everything is okay." "Exactly," nodded Carmen. "Because for her it's unimaginable that you might be unavailable. That you might have your own life without her control." The phone rang for the third time. Miguel took it in his hands, took a deep breath, and rejected the call. "I'll write her a message," he said, quickly typing. "I'll say I'm busy and will call back tomorrow." No sooner had he sent the message than the phone rang again. This time the screen displayed a video call. "Dios mío," whispered Miguel. "She never calls on video. Something must have happened." His finger hovered over the green answer button. "Miguel," Carmen touched his hand. "Nothing has happened. She just wants to see your face to manipulate more effectively. To understand why you're not answering." Miguel hesitated, looking at the screen, and then resolutely declined the call and turned off the phone. I can't talk to her right now," he said, sinking into a chair. "Not in this state." Before he could finish speaking, there was a ring at the door. 3 short, insistent rings. "No," mumbled Miguel. "It can't be." "Yes, it can," Carmen smiled joyously. "Your mother lives half an hour away from us. She could easily have rushed over when you stopped answering her calls." The ring repeated, longer and more demanding. "Miguel Alvarez." Dolores's voice came from behind the door. "I know you're home. Open up immediately." Miguel and Carmen exchanged glances. "What should we do?" he asked in a whisper. "You decide," Carmen shrugged. "Your mother, your rules." The ringing changed to loud knocking. "Miguel." Dolores's voice grew even louder. "If you don't open up, I'll call the police. I'm worried." "Damn," Miguel ran his hand over his face. "She'll do it. Just out of spite." He headed for the door, but stopped halfway. "I'll handle this myself," he said. "All right. Stay in the bedroom." Carmen shook her head. "No way. This is my home too. And this is our shared crisis. I'm staying." Miguel took a deep breath and opened the door. Dolores stood on the threshold, a petite woman with perfect hair and a piercing, intense gaze. In a formal suit and with a small purse, she looked as if she was heading to a business meeting, not bursting into her son's home at 10 in the evening. "Poor Finn," she exclaimed, stepping decisively into the hallway. "What's going on? Why aren't you answering my calls?" "I've been beside myself." "Mom," Miguel tried to speak calmly. "Everything is fine. I was just busy." "What were you so busy with that you couldn't answer your mother?" Dolores walked into the living room, surveying the apartment with a critical eye. "And why is there such a mess here? Carmen has completely neglected the housekeeping." Carmen stood by the wall, arms crossed over her chest. For the first time in all the days of this strange hunger strike, she felt completely calm. As if she had reached some point of no return, transitioning from a state of internal boiling to icy calm. "Hello, Dolores," she said in an even voice. What a surprise. Her mother-in-law measured her with a cold look. "What's going on here? Miguel hasn't visited me for a week, doesn't answer my calls. Everything is great." Carmen smiled. "Just a little diet, for health reasons." "Diet?" Dolores narrowed her eyes. "What diet?" "A pasta one," Carmen spread her hands. "Very fashionable. Everyone eats like this now, rice and expired bouillon cubes. Very cleansing for the body." "What nonsense are you talking?" Dolores turned to her son. "Miguel, explain what's going on here." Miguel was silent, shifting his gaze from his mother to his wife and back. His face had paled, drops of sweat appeared on his forehead. He began and fell silent, as if unable to find the words. "It's very simple, Dolores," Carmen stepped forward. "We're a little tight on funds. Because all the money went to your resort and my mother's trip to the Canary Islands." "What trip?" Her mother-in-law raised her voice. "What are you talking about?" "About the fact that after Miguel transferred you 1,400 euros for the resort, I transferred 3,120 euros to my mother for a vacation in the Canary Islands," Carmen spoke calmly, almost businesslike. "As a result, we don't have money even for normal food. Not to mention the refrigerator we were planning to buy." Dolores turned crimson. "You did what?" She turned to her son. "Miguel, is this true?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, Mom. Carmen transferred all the money to her mother. After I transferred money to you for the resort. And now you're starving?" Dolores shifted her gaze to Carmen. This is blackmail. Manipulation. Miguel, don't you see what she's doing?" "I see," Miguel replied quietly. "She's showing me what it's like to live in a situation where all the family money goes to parents. When it's impossible to plan anything, because an urgent necessity may arise at any moment." Dolores froze with her mouth open. You're blaming me?" Her voice faltered. "After everything I've done for you? After all the sacrifices?" "No, Mom," Miguel straightened up. "I'm not blaming you. I just have seen the light. And I understand that we can't live like this anymore. I can't give half my salary to you every month. I have my own family, my own obligations. And you need to understand that. I don't have to understand anything." Dolores raised her voice. "I am your mother. I raised you. You owe me everything. I am grateful to you, Mom," Miguel spoke quietly but firmly. "But I am not your property. And the money I earn isn't yours either. How dare you?" Dolores threw up her hands. "It's all her." She pointed a trembling finger at Carmen. "She turned you against your own mother." "No, Mom," Miguel shook his head. "It's not Carmen. It's you yourself. With your endless demands, manipulations, the guilt you constantly hang on me. I refuse to listen to this." Dolores grabbed her purse. "When you come to your senses and apologize, call me. Until then, I don't want to see you." She headed for the exit, but turned at the door. "And remember, Miguel, I did everything for you. I gave my whole life. And you betrayed me." The door slammed behind her with a deafening crash. A silence hung in the apartment, broken only by Miguel's heavy breathing. "Well," Carmen put her hand on his shoulder. "Now do you understand?" Miguel nodded slowly. "Yes. Now I understand." He sank onto the couch, covering his face with his hands. "God, how could I not see this before? How could I not understand that she's just using me?" "Because she's your mother," Carmen sat beside him. "And you love her. And you want to believe that she wishes you well. And now? Miguel raised his eyes, red from fatigue, to her. What now? We're left without money, without food, with a dead refrigerator, and with a mother who has disowned me. Brilliant plan, I must say. Carmen sighed and took out her phone. Now. She dialed a number. Hi, Mom. Yes, it happened. It worked. No, everything's fine. You can return the money to me tomorrow. Yes. Thank you. Love you. She hung up and turned to the stunned Miguel. Tomorrow we'll get the money back. Buy groceries, order a new refrigerator. And start living in a new way. Your mother. Miguel was at a loss for words. All this time, she wasn't planning to go to the Canaries? No, Carmen shook her head. It was a kind of object lesson. For you. So you could understand how our life looks from the outside. And if I hadn't understood? Miguel asked quietly. If I had just gotten angry at you? If I had just left? Then, Carmen took a deep breath, I would have had to accept that our marriage wasn't worth fighting for. That you would never stop being a mama's boy. And that I'd be better off leaving myself. They were silent, looking at each other in the half-darkness of the living room. Somewhere in the kitchen, the dying refrigerator continued to wheeze, rain pattered against the windowsill outside, and in the air hung a sense of something pivotal, irreversible. As if their life had been divided into before and after, and right now they were standing exactly on the boundary. I'll call my mom, Miguel finally said. Tomorrow. I'll try to explain. Maybe she'll understand. Carmen squeezed his hand. Don't count on it. People like your mother find it hard to admit their mistakes. For her, it will feel like humiliation, a loss of control. But I have to try. Miguel looked determined. I have to explain that I love her, but I can't live like this anymore. That I need independence. All right, Carmen nodded. Just remember, she will use every means to return to the status quo. Tears, threats, accusations, blackmail. Be prepared for that. I'll manage, Miguel squeezed her hand tighter. Now I'll manage. At that moment, there was a loud crack in the kitchen, then a click, and the house plunged into darkness. The fuses had blown. The refrigerator gave a final death gasp and fell silent forever. Mierda, muttered Miguel, feeling for his phone to turn on the flashlight. And now this. Symbolic, isn't it? Carmen laughed joylessly. The old life has finally gone down the drain. Along with the wiring, added Miguel, and they both laughed, for the first time in the long days of this strange, torturous experiment. The morning of the next day, the money from Carmen's mother did indeed arrive in the account. Taking a taxi, they went to the hypermarket, where they bought groceries for a week, and then stopped at the appliance store and placed an order for a refrigerator delivery. The very Siemens that Carmen had dreamed of. In the evening, sitting in the kitchen with cups of hot tea and plates full of normal food, they were drafting a new family budget. For the first time in their marriage, truly a family budget and truly joint. I called my boss, said Miguel, taking a bite of a substantial sandwich. Took a day off for tomorrow. I'll go to my mother's. Talk to her in person. The morning began with heavy leaden clouds hanging over the city. Miguel stood for a long time at the window, watching the raindrops running down the glass, as if postponing the inevitable. The conversation with his mother would be difficult, and he wasn't sure he was ready for it. Maybe I should go with you. Carmen handed him a cup of coffee made from freshly ground beans. A small luxury they could afford again. No, Miguel shook his head. This is my battle. I have to handle it myself. He sipped his coffee, feeling the hot liquid pass down his throat, warming and giving strength. For the first time in a long time, he felt an amazing clarity of thought. As if a veil that had covered his eyes for years suddenly fell away. I plan to speak to her directly, Miguel said, looking out the window. No concessions, no compromises. Just explain that from now on we manage our own money. Carmen squeezed his hand. Just be prepared that she'll take this as a declaration of war. People like your mother don't know how to lose. I know, Miguel smiled bitterly. But there's no other way. He put on his jacket, stuck his keys in his pocket, and took a deep breath. Wish me luck. Good luck, Carmen kissed him on the cheek. And remember, whatever happens, you've already defeated your main enemy, your fear. Dolores opened the door after the third ring, as if deliberately making her son freeze on the landing. Her face expressed nothing but cold detachment. You showed up, she said instead of a greeting. Conscience got the better of you? Hello, Mom, Miguel calmly entered the apartment. We need to talk. What is there to talk about? Dolores walked into the living room, dramatically sinking into an armchair as if playing a dramatic role on stage. You said everything yesterday. Chose that woman instead of your own mother. I didn't choose anyone, Miguel remained standing. I just realized that I can no longer live the way I lived before. I can't give you half of what I earn. I have my own family, my own obligations. Obligations? Dolores raised an eyebrow. Obligations to the mother who raised you, educated you, devoted her whole life to you, that means nothing? It does mean something, Miguel nodded. But not in the sense you're implying. I'm grateful for everything you've done for me. But that doesn't mean I have to financially support you for the rest of your life. So that's how you talk now. Dolores threw up her hands theatrically. So once the claw is caught, the whole bird is lost? Got married, and mother is cast aside. Stop it, Miguel tiredly rubbed the bridge of his nose. You know very well that's not true. I call you every day, visit several times a week, help with repairs, with the computer, with documents. But financially, I can no longer support you to the extent I did before. Dolores rose sharply from the armchair. She turned you against me. That. She didn't finish, as if she couldn't force herself to say her daughter-in-law's name. From the very beginning, she wanted to tear you away from your mother. Turned you against me. Mom, Miguel spoke quietly but firmly. Carmen has nothing to do with this. This is my decision. I've been turning a blind eye to what's happening for too long. To how you manipulate me, using feelings of guilt and gratitude. Kay? Dolores was breathless with indignation. I? Manipulate? How dare you? Exactly, Miguel didn't back down. Every time we have money for something important, a refrigerator, a vacation, repairs, you suddenly have an urgent need for that same money. And each time I gave in. Gave you everything you demanded. But now, enough. Dolores sank back into the armchair, pressing her hand to her chest. My heart will stop from such words. My own son. Don't do this, Mom, Miguel shook his head. Don't be dramatic. Your heart is fine, you had a checkup last month. You're a monster. Dolores' eyes filled with tears. My whole life for you. I know, Miguel didn't let her finish. But I'm not your property. And it doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my family for your demands. Demands? Dolores jumped up, and the tears instantly dried. You call my need for treatment demands? I could die without this resort. Mom, Miguel sighed. Why did you lie about the resort? I called the medical center you mentioned. There is no innovative arthritis treatment course for 1,400 euros. There's no course at all. Dolores turned pale. You checked up on me? Yes, Miguel answered firmly. And I found that you lied. Just as you lied about the surgery last year, about the urgent roof repair, about replacing the pipes in the bathroom. Every time you needed money, you invented some emergency situation. And I believed you. Every time. Dolores was silent, lips pressed into a thin line. Her face was distorted with anger and humiliation. I will not discuss this, she finally hissed. You came to insult me in my own home? Fine. Get out. And don't come back. Mom, Miguel took a step toward her. I don't want to quarrel. I just want us to have normal, healthy relationships. Not based on manipulation and guilt. Get out. Dolores pointed to the door with a trembling hand. I disown you. You are no longer my son. Do you hear? Not my son. Miguel felt his heart contract with pain. Despite all his understanding of the situation, somewhere deep inside he was still a little boy, desperately craving maternal approval and love. All right, he said quietly. I'll go. But know this, my door is always open for you. When you're ready for a normal conversation, come. But without manipulation, without hysterics, without demands for money. Fuera, screamed Dolores, grabbing a vase from the coffee table and raising it to throw. Miguel silently turned and left the apartment. The vase shattered against the closed door, showering the corridor with fragments. Going down the stairs, he felt a strange mixture of emptiness and relief. As if he had shed a burden of many years, but at the same time lost a part of himself. All his life, his relationship with his mother had defined his existence, shaped his personality. And now, having broken this painful connection, he had to redefine who he was. Leaving the building, Miguel took out his phone. Carmen? I'm coming home. Yes. It's over. The refrigerator was delivered on Saturday, exactly at noon. The large, shiny Siemens took the place of the old Bosch, instantly transforming the kitchen. Carmen couldn't stop opening and closing its door, enjoying the soft rustle of the rubber seals and the steady, almost inaudible hum. Beautiful, she said, stroking the smooth metal surface. And quiet as a mouse. Miguel silently nodded, arranging products on the shelves. 3 days had passed since the break with his mother, and he was still withdrawn, as if trying to process what had happened. What are you thinking about? Carmen touched his shoulder. About what happened, Miguel sighed. About Mom. About us. About everything. Do you regret it? He was silent, carefully arranging bottles of milk and juice. No. I don't regret it. But it hurts. Of course it hurts, Carmen hugged him from behind. She's your mother. No matter how she acts, you still love her. You know what's strangest? Miguel turned to her. I feel free. For the first time in my life. As if he had cast off shackles whose existence he hadn't even suspected. That's what freedom is, Carmen smiled. Freedom to be yourself. To make decisions on your own. Not to constantly look for someone's approval. They finished sorting the groceries and sat down at the kitchen table. Outside, a quiet spring rain was falling, washing the city after a long winter. She'll come back, Miguel suddenly said. Mom. Maybe in a week, maybe in a month. But she'll come back. She doesn't know how to live without control over my life. And what will you do? Talk to her. Firmly, but calmly. Without conceding on the main points, Miguel thoughtfully looked out the window. I love her and want her to be part of our lives. But on equal terms. Not as a dictator, but as just a mom. And if she doesn't accept the new rules? Then. Miguel squeezed Carmen's hand. Then we'll live as we've decided. Without her influence. I've chosen my path and won't turn from it. At that moment, there was a ring at the door. Who's that? Carmen frowned. We're not expecting anyone. Miguel shrugged and went to open it. Dolores stood on the threshold, with a perfect hairstyle, in an elegant suit, and with a large bag in her hands. Mom? Miguel blinked in confusion. What are you? I came to meet the new refrigerator, Dolores interrupted him, stepping decisively into the hallway. Since you spent so much money, I should see what on, shouldn't I? Her tone was the usual, commanding and slightly condescending, as if there had been no quarrel. As if she hadn't shouted 3 days ago that she was disowning her son. Mom. Miguel blocked her path. We didn't arrange a meeting. And after what you said. Poor favor. Dolores waved dismissively. You know I was just upset. After all, I'm your mother. I can't disown you. She tried to squeeze past him into the room, but Miguel didn't move. No, Mom. It won't work like that. We can't just pretend nothing happened. We need to talk seriously. What is there to talk about? Dolores shrugged. There was a misunderstanding, it's resolved. I understood everything. Now let me pass, I want to see this famous refrigerator. Carmen observed this scene from the kitchen, holding her breath. She saw how her husband's shoulders tensed, how his hands trembled. It was still difficult for him to directly oppose his mother. Mom. Miguel took a deep breath, gathering strength. I'm very glad you came. Really, I am. But I can't let you in just like that, without a conversation. We need to dot the I's and cross the T's. Establish new rules. Rules? Dolores feigned surprise. What rules? I'm your mother, not some stranger. That's exactly why we need rules, Miguel said firmly. Clear boundaries. And the first rule, no financial demands. I will no longer transfer money to you monthly. Dolores' face contorted. You refuse to help your own mother? No, Mom. I refuse to be your ATM, Miguel spoke calmly but decisively. If you need real help, with repairs, with moving, with treatment, I'll help. But there will be no more regular transfers. She turned you against me. Dolores pointed a finger toward Carmen. This. Carmen. My wife, Miguel straightened up. And no, this is entirely my decision. I came to this conclusion myself when I realized how unhealthy our relationship had become. Dolores turned crimson. Unhealthy? A mother's care for her son is unhealthy? What do you know about it? Mom, Miguel sighed. This isn't care. It's control. It's manipulation. And I won't allow you to do this anymore. Fine, Dolores said, unexpectedly calmly. I understand. You chose her, not me. Well, live as you see fit. Just don't come to me when she leaves you. I warned you. She turned to the exit, but suddenly spun around and threw the bag she was holding onto the floor. This is for you, she said in a trembling voice. For your housewarming with the new refrigerator. Let it remind you of me. Although, of course, what's the point? You've already erased me from your life. The door closed behind her with a quiet click, without dramatic slamming, without shouting. And for some reason, that made it even harder. Miguel picked up the bag from the floor. Inside was a small ceramic pot with a blooming geranium, bright red, with velvety petals. She remembers that I love geraniums, he said quietly, looking at the flower. She always remembered such little things. Carmen came over and hugged him. She loves you, Miguel. In her own way, distorted, but she loves you. And maybe someday she'll understand that real love isn't about control, but about freedom. Miguel placed the pot with the geranium on the windowsill. Maybe. But I won't wait for that moment forever. We have our own life, our own plans. And what now? Now, Miguel smiled for the first time in many days, now we will live. Just live. Without constantly looking back, without the eternal feeling of guilt. Like a normal family. He took Carmen by the hand and led her to the kitchen. Speaking of a normal family. How about albondigas? I terribly missed your meatballs. Carmen laughed. With pleasure. Not because someone demands it, but simply because you love them. She took fresh ground meat, eggs, onions from the new refrigerator, everything needed for albondigas. And Miguel opened a bottle of Rioja, filled 2 glasses, and proposed a toast, to our freedom. And to the new refrigerator, a symbol of our independence. They clinked glasses, and the crystal sound seemed to put the final period in this story. A story about how one determined woman, an empty refrigerator, and several packages of pasta helped a man escape from the captivity of maternal manipulation and finally become an adult. Outside, the rain had stopped, and through the clouds broke the first ray of spring sunshine, heralding the beginning of something new, bright, and genuine.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.